Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Well, hello everyone, welcome back with me again. So, in this video, I want to review the material from chapter 11 with the topic Culture as a Text, Narratives, and Hermeneutics. So, in this material, there are some topics that I want to present for all. The first is about structuralist poetics, Vladimir Prout, Northrop Frye, the critic of structural poetics, Mikhail Bakhtin, Umberto Eco, narrative and social drama, the narrative analysis and politics, Bakhtin's on the Carnival School, Hermeneutics, until Clifford Geertz. So, culture as a text, narratives, and hermeneutics. Today, it is a commonplace to observe that culture or social life is a text, and that it has to be interpreted. For some perspectives, however, this dictum is more axiomatic than for others. Although it is central to many forms of structuralism and folk-structuralism, those theoretical approaches that are concerned with narratives and hermeneutics. In this chapter, we focus on that. We begin by introducing some theoretical tools for interpreting stories and genre frames. The first subject is structuralist poetics. When structuralists approach the analysis of narratives, especially conventionally, stories and literal use, their activity is often given the name of structuralist poetics. The central theme here is often not so much binary oppositions, but rather plot, character, and genre. Advocates of the approach see it as a step toward a more scientific approach to literature, one which goes beyond traditional evaluation, criticism, and tries to set up value-free yardstick for classifying and exploring texts. Within this tradition, the work of Russian folklorist Vladimir Prout holds a canonical position, especially within the fields of literary criticism and folklore studies. Second is Vladimir Prout. Vladimir Prout can be considered a true pioneer in the structural analysis of culture. Prout argued that each narrative was made up of what he called functions. To give some ideas of how this look, here are the first 5 of Prout's functions. Number 1. One of the members of a family leaves home. Second, an interdiction is addressed to the hero. 3. The interdiction is violent. 4. The villain makes a theme a reconnaissance. 5. The villain receives information about his victim. And the last, the villain attempts to deceive his victim in order to take possession of him or his belongings. Next is Northrop Frye. Since the 1950s centuries, the work of the Canadian theorist Northrop Frye has constituted the most ambitious attempt at constructing such a synthetic model. In Anatomy of Criticism, Frye 1971-1957 to organize the whole of literature into a coherent framework or classification. The point of this way is to move beyond the ethical and moralistic criticism, which confuse formal analysis with judgment about good or bad writing or the human values of the author. Frye drew in a part on Aristotle's poetics and suggests that structural relationship link character, plot, and narrative genre over all forms of literature. Frye's overall project is to put the study of narrative on a systematic and scientific footing by identifying deeper regularities that go beyond superficial distinctions in style, variant, or characterizations. Next, the critique of structural poetics. The approach of structuralist poetics exemplified by Prout and Frye has a number of strong suites. From a sociological point of view, it offers powerful evidence for understanding narratives as social facts. which are subject to laws and empirical regularities of which authors and readers may be unaware. Structuralist poetics tend to work with the idea that fixed and ambiguous meaning exists in the text and that it can be plucked of like currents from above. Critics assert that such an approach is too objectivist and clunky to capture the subtleties of narrative and meaning. It also neglects important questions about the role of power in the construction of text and symbol systems. Michael Bacon's reputation centers around two main concepts, the dialogue and carnival. The idea of the dialogic taps into the creative and relational aspect of the novel and was used Batten to critique Saussurean approaches to the symbol. What is particularly attractive about Batten is that be able to theorize the role for the reader and local context, while still acknowledging the constraining power of collective language and symbolism on the interpretive process. Next, Umberto Eco, the role of the reader. The work of the Italian sematician Umberto Eco, 1984, provides another avenue for exploring these questions, offering a critique of orthodox structural poetics from within the canon. Eco begins by pointing out that the author has to assume that the ensemble of quotes he relies upon is the same as that shared by his possible reader. What Eco is suggesting then are: the first is that we should not think of semiotic and narrative quotes as simply the products of transcendental cultural logic or grammar. Rather, they arise as the result of textual strategies through which real authors try to communicate with imagined readers. The second is, readers have considerable freedom in the interpretive process. In exploring meaning construction, we have to look at this as well as the structural codes of the text. And the last, texts will vary in the extent to which they invite or try to foreclose the reader's interpretive freedom. We can classify them accordingly or study the ways in which they achieve this end. Next, narrative and social process. For the most part, the analysis of narrative has been an activity of literary theorists interested in the study of text. First, studies of genres and audiences. This aims to explain why particular narrative forms appeal to particular groups or how this become institutionalized and widespread. Second, explorations of narrative in qualitative methodology. This approach tends to be more concerned with the research process and epistemology than with the theorizing narrative forms or their social impacts. And the last is studies all the narrative aspects or social and political life. Investigations heralding of social and historical events being shaped by discourse and point out that often have narrative dimensions. Victor Turner and social drama. Victor Turner, 1974, work is an important point of reference for those who wish to indicate the narrative or picked up dimensions of social process in the real world. Turner shows social life as a kind of performance characterized by imaginations, play, and creativity. He suggests that although meaning are often applied forcefully in the stories, we tell about historical events. Example in historical stage drama. Next, the narrative analysis and politics. Perhaps the best use of Turner's ideas is by Robin Wagner Pacific, 1986. In the morality page, he applies the concept of the social drama to events surrounding the kidnapping and eventual death of Italian Prime Minister Aldo Moro during the 1970s centuries. What was usual about this event was that the sequence predicted by Turner did not eventuate. Events seemed to become stuck at the stage of crisis, with neither reintegration nor legitimation for the position of the terrorists. Wagner facilely argued that Moro was eventually killed by the Red Brigade thanks to moral play narrative falling into place in the Italian public sphere. He tended to see things in black and white terms. Goodies were goodies, baddies were baddies, and there should be no deals between them. And after that, next, Bakhtin on the carnivalesque. According to Bakhtin, writers like Rabelais were able to develop their genre by driving upon a pre-existing folk tradition of storytelling and everyday behavior. Using a mixture of literary and historical data, Bakhtin highlights the way that the aesthetics of the popular carnival infused the work of Rabelais. His focus on the sensual, the grotesque, the impolite, and the excess, and so great attention in the genre is paid to prodigious feats of eating, excreting, strength, laughter, and sexuality. And the next, Hermeneutics. Hermeneutics as an area is concerned with issues of meaning and mutual understanding. Traditionally, it has tended to be subjective, humanistic, individualistic, aesthetic, philosophical, and phenomenal in orientations. In the context of literary criticism, for example, it has been centrally concerned with theorizing whether the reader can recover the meanings and thoughts held by the author. Narrative theory, by contrast, has tended to be more objectivist in orientations. And the last point is Clifford Geertz. Geertz's great achievement is to alert us to the textual qualities of cultural life and to call upon cultural theories to provide rich and persuasive detail in the accounts. By contrast to Geertz's eloquent writing, many other approaches to word culture can look rude, formalistic, and robotic. A final comment on Geertz related to his impact on the discipline of anthropology. Geertz is a modernist in that he believes anthropology to be a discipline that can generate improved understanding and interpretations. This, after all, is the text at the center of the hermeneutic agenda. And from the old material that I presented before, so the lesson that we can got from the material is, in the concluding material, we can sum that narrative and hermeneutic is very important to explore in more detail their impact on cultural theory. So guys, that's all the review about chapter 11 from